Hi, this is Curt and welcome to another edition of Fire Law Roundup.
I love this next one. I mean, I hate it, but I love it because we're the Monday morning quarterbacks here, or Sunday night quarterbacks at the moment. But let's go to Alabama. And I don't mean to offend Alabama because this could have happened in Texas too. But
this could have happened anywhere.
Anywhere except New York, where they've outlawed guns and now we're not even allowed to have rubber bands, I think. But nonetheless, we'll see the Supreme Court address that. Okay, so here we have. I got to summarize this because the names will drive you nuts. So there's a neighbor dispute. The neighbors are, pissed off over garbage and all that stuff left in front of somebody's property. It starts getting whatever heated, and all of a sudden, and the emergency services are called, police and fire, which will lend into another interesting conversation. In any event, so the neighbor who basically was trashing the place, but I think was the subject of the pissed off neighbor's anger. So that neighbor, right, has a relative, son, and spouse. And guess who shows up on the fire truck? Nonetheless, carrying a gun, but guess who shows up on the fire truck, right? So he shows up on the fire truck. There's pushing and shoving going on. The firefighter, I think, is pushing, whatever. But the firefighter pulls a gun.
So, oh my God.
Right. So, and it was the firefighter. That's why I'm not using names because it's too confusing.
Yeah.
The firefighter on duty, but it's Alabama. I don't know. Maybe that's allowed. Pulls a gun. I don't know if he went into his house, but he pulls a gun. In any event, they then arrest the neighbor, not the firefighter, not the firefighter's spouse, right, who had the gun. They arrest the neighbor. They put him in prison. He's alleging, these are, by the way, these are all allegations. This is not a court finding. These are just all allegations, but all these allegations, right? So they then put the initial neighbor who's upset about the garbage and who had a gun pulled on him, etc. They put him in prison. They search his cell phone. They search through some records. They take his personal belongings, right? So now we have the Fourth Amendment allegation. And then they let him go at some point for whatever reason. I think it's because he suffers a medical emergency. He's taken to the hospital. Then he's released by the police after his medical treatment. So he's out. So they sue, right, as kind of understandable. But there's a lot of interesting parts to this lawsuit. And I think more there could have been. So, they say that the city who employs the firefighter was negligent in his hiring, training, and retention. They say the city committed assault, battery, conversion, false imprisonment, and violated Cordell's neighbor's constitutional rights and discriminated against him based on his age and gender. Now, forget that age and gender stuff. I don't get that. But negligent hiring and training, like, hey, don't carry a gun on duty. And if you do, don't pull it unless your life is in danger. And if it's, and by the way, getting pushed when you can walk away probably ain't going to be a life or death situation. When I'm assuming, by the way, and I wondered what happened, what about all the other people on the fire truck? I mean, this is just a great bunch of allegations. I just don't know how true they are, but interesting allegations.
Yeah, I understood the guy was arrested, but I didn't realize that the firefighter pulled the gun. And that raises something. You and we've talked about this at your conference, and it's something that as a Second Amendment guy concerns me greatly, is that when we carry on duty, if we're carrying on duty, we are government agents. And I know firefighters don't think of themselves as government agents, but there's a difference in when a citizen takes out a gun and threatens deadly force, and when a government agent does it. And it raises these constitutional issues, Fourth Amendment, 14th Amendment, and we don't have any training in that. I mean, you and I do, but the typical firefighter doesn't. They spend a great deal of time in police academies and also police refresher on this issue, because even if a police officer places his hand on a gun or her hand on a gun, that is threatened use of force. It has to be justified. If it's not justified, it's considered excessive force. Even placing your hand on a gun can be excessive force, right?
Yeah.
So we're not trained in that. Maybe he is, maybe he's a constable, maybe he's got the training, but you know, it's not what you can get away with as a citizen is not what you can get away with as a government agent. And I hate to use that term, but that's how it looks. I know we don't think of ourselves that way, but it's we work for government, and we're in your house, your property, your whatever, and we're threatening you with deadly force. Holy cow.
Yeah, and there aren't too many states where you can just pull out the gun when you have a whole yard behind you, and right, and you can leave. And I'm not saying just retreat. I mean, you can just take a step back, but there was no cop ever, no good trained cop, whatever, who's being pushed, would ever pull a gun. And, you know, I'm going to quote you, and it's not applicable in this case, but the problem with concealed carry or open carry, whatever it is we don't have anything between our voice and the gun. We don't have a baton. We don't have mace. We don't have a taser. We go right to deadly force. If this is true, wow. I would say the city's probably losing. I don't care whether the arrest was justified or not. One of your employees pulls a gun on you, and no wonder he had a medical condition. If true.
Yeah.
Can't say that enough. And
yeah,
I'm kind of wondering, where's the other
there's always another side to it, you know, but certainly that firearm. I mean, I was thinking that our discussion, I hadn't picked up on the firearm, and I'm thinking, but even they got into some sort of a physical tussle, even that can be excessive force. Because any force that you apply has to be reasonable. And once you go beyond, as a government employee, once you go beyond, it's not just assault.
Let's stop there.
It's a civil rights violation.
But let's stop there, because you just said the key words. As a government employee, you can bet the city is going to move to dismiss, saying he was not acting in the scope of his duty, and we aren't liable for what clearly was him protecting his spouse.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things they said, which I don't think holds any water, I don't know why they went there, but they said, well, the policy was wait for the police. I don't know that in this case that really matters, but I will tell you, if I'm the city, I'm arguing this has nothing to do with scope of his duty. We're out. Unless they can show you knew he was carrying a gun and you knew he didn't have training, that would bring the city back in, certainly.
Yeah.
So
I guess I was going in the direction of qualified immunity, but I think you're right. The city may find it more advantageous to cut them loose.
I would, but they better not be able to say that even a lieutenant knew, and I assume he's not a lieutenant, but we don't know. But that a lieutenant or somebody higher knew he was carrying a gun. You show that you knew people were carrying a gun, all bets are off.
Yeah, and certainly if he was a peace officer, an arson investigator, that changes a little bit. But now he steps into the shoes of a police officer, and hopefully he's got the Fourth Amendment training on exactly what he can and can't do. Well, again, we got half the story here, but
right.